Hello and welcome to the chemistry topic on the carbon cycle, and lesson 1 is all about the carbon cycle. So I want you to have a think about how important carbon is in everyday life. More important than you probably realise and more present than you realise. So 4 images there: the tree, coal, power station and an animal, a cow. All of those are involved in the carbon cycle and all of them play a really important part. Some we would like to play less of a part, for example, the power station and the coal maybe, due to other issues like global warming, but we're not going to go into that too much today. Now, what you need to understand is how they are all linked and their role within the carbon cycle. To start with, you need to think about how photosynthesis, respiration and combustion are all linked. So this topic does cover photosynthesis and respiration, which obviously feature in biology units. And if you haven't looked at those yet, that's fine. We will recap them, and don't worry, maybe as we're going through, make some notes on them or look them up afterwards to make sure that you are clear on what photosynthesis is, what respiration is and what combustion is. So, green plants will absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and this takes place during photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide is absorbed and it reacts with water. It reacts with water and light and chlorophyll. This also takes place in algae, and the products from the reaction of photosynthesis are oxygen and glucose. So the plants are able to make their own food in the form of glucose, which means we call them producers. That's photosynthesis, and when they have absorbed that carbon dioxide, it's then used to make other materials, which we've just referenced when we've talked about glucose, which can then be stored as starch, which is a carbohydrate. Now, still focusing on that passing on, animals then eat the plants, so that carbon is passed on to them. This will then pass up the food chain. So what will happen is those animals will use the carbon for making other substances. Then when animals eat other animals, the carbon is passed along the food chain. Okay, so the carbon is present in that living organism. Still as a result of photosynthesis here, remembering that we started at the start of the food chain with the green plant. Now, then to link in respiration, animals and plants respire. Only plants photosynthesize, but animals and plants respire, and respiration will release carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. So the carbon goes back into the atmosphere. It does that because there is a reaction between oxygen and glucose, and the products of that reaction are carbon dioxide, water, and it also releases energy. Now, animal and plants will die and decay, but the animals specifically will also excrete. That excretion in the form of feces will also be decayed. So decomposers will feed on the dead animals, the dead plants and their waste, which is what I'm referencing when I say excretion. The decomposers respire, so that releases even more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now, don't worry if you're thinking this is an awful lot to remember, because it's a really simple way of showing this, and I'll show it to you with some images, but you can use just text to write it out, okay? Now, once the dead animals and plants have been decomposed, some of their remains will get buried. Now, over many years, that can form fossil fuels, so it links us to our power station and our coal picture. Those fossil fuels are then burnt. When they are burnt, that's when combustion occurs, okay? Because combustion will be when that fuel reacts with oxygen, okay? And that then releases more carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. There's your link between how you go from your green plant and your cow to your power station and your coal. Now, what you need to be able to do is not necessarily draw this with all the images of the cow and the poo and the bones, etc. But you do need to be able to label it. There's lots of arrows on there. If you look at the cloud to start with, that will show you the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It also shows you 4 arrows pointing towards that, from the cow, the tree, the decomposers and the power stations. And respiration and combustion are how that carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere. You've got 1 arrow going into the tree, which shows that carbon dioxide is absorbed by photosynthesis into the tree. Then you've got some other arrows, some dotted arrows showing different things happening. So the feeding of animals, the excretion and the formation of fossil fuels. You need to be able to label a diagram like that, or at least, or as well, you don't have to draw it out, but also to be able to name the different processes where. So they might give you part of a diagram, or they might say summarise the carbon cycle. If you can picture that and think of respiration, photosynthesis, decomposers and combustion, you should be able to cover all the things that are happening within the carbon cycle. Right. If you need to rewatch the video, what we need you to do now is take a look at the worksheet and see if you can answer the questions on the worksheet. I've included on this worksheet some definitions for you, so you might need to do a bit of research or listen to the first part of the video again where I talk specifically about photosynthesis and respiration and combustion so that you can get those definitions written down. Okay, and we will see you again very soon for lesson 2.